I recognize some names here from being all over the place. So thank you all for joining. It looks like many of you have already discovered the chat feature in here. So good to see there's some interaction going on there. Just a quick thing to get started with here is if you haven't been to one of CalcuQuote's webinars in the past, I'll kind of walk you through the reason we do these webinars, what they're like, and then we'll go over some logistical items before we get started with the meat of the webinar. So let's start with what this webinar series is about. This is the first in a series of webinars we're planning to do for the supply chain and digitizing the supply chain. And we're starting with today, we've got guest speakers from DigiKey. But more broadly, the reason that CalcuQuote does these webinars is primarily to educate. So if you're here expecting a demo of what CalcuQuote does or something like that, that's not the purpose of today. You're always happy to visit our website or contact our salespeople and definitely have a deeper understanding of what CalcuQuote specifically does in this. But the purpose of today is to talk about supply chain, talk about digital supply chain, and how how we work in this case with DigiKey and get their insights on what that looks like as well. Just a quick introduction of myself in this. So my name is Chintan Sutaria. I'm the founder and president of CalcuQuote. Started working on CalcuQuote about 6 years ago, noticing that there was a problem in the RFQ process, specifically for electronics contract manufacturing. And it was something that there wasn't one system that did it all for that type of business. And so that's where CalcuQuote got its start, is that it was a tedious process to do quotes efficiently. And through the use of APIs and supply chain integrations, we were able to help add significant value to that. With that, let me just go over a couple of logistical items here. If you are in the, if you're able to see the webinar bar, you should be able to see the screen being shared. So you'll see like a title slide that says supply chain agility through real-time data. So you should see that. The second thing is you'll also see buttons for chat and Q&A, and you'll also see polls. So the chat, feel free to use that. It goes to the panelists. So we've got me, Stefan and Nathan from DigiKey, and Caitlin Dotson from CalcuQuote, who's going to be fielding some of those chat conversations as well. But yeah, feel free to use the chat. The Q&A is a great place to ask if you have any questions that you'd like us as the panelists to be able to address. So please feel free to use that as well, and we'll try to do our best to answer them throughout the presentation or throughout the webinar, but we might save some of those for the end as well. And then you'll also see polls coming out, and really that's just to keep an understanding of who the audience is and get to address the things that you'd be most interested in. So I'm going to show you an example of a poll here. Some of you already saw it before the webinar started of Can You Just Hear Me? But you'll see an example of one here that just says, tell me who you are, kind of gives us an idea of where your interests might lie. With that, so the structure of today's webinar is going to be very informal. We're going to just do a discussion. So we've got Stefan he's from France, works for DigiKey, and we've got Nathan, who's in Minnesota right now, where it's considerably colder than Dallas, I'm sure. But we've got both of those as our guest speakers, and we're just going to do this as an informal conversation. I've got some discussion topics, and we'll go from there. But as we're going through this, like I said, please feel free to ask questions, use the chat, engage with us. Let's make this as interactive as possible. With that, guys, Nathan, do you want to start off with an introduction, and then we'll go to Stefan next?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Nathan Prim, Senior Digital Product Owner at DigiKey Electronics. I'm responsible for strategy and development of our digital connection platforms, including API and EDI. I've been with DigiKey for a little over 15 years, focused pretty long-term on connection platforms and integration.
Thanks, Nathan.
So, me, Stefan today. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. So I joined DigiKey almost 6 years ago. I have two main roles in DigiKey. First, I'm the business development manager for France. So as Chintan said, I'm based in France. And I'm also the international API champion for Europe and Asia. And this role, my goal is to ease the adoption of the APIs by our customers. I'm also in charge of the relationship with the third-party partners here in Europe, and I support the key customers with the first technical concern, as well as the other business development managers.
Okay, thank you guys very much, and thank you guys both for joining today. We've got more than, I think we had more than 150 registrants, and even attending right now, we've got more than 60 people attending. So definitely a lot of interest in what we're talking about today. So let's start off with, I'm just gonna, I guess I'll keep that up there. Let's see if I can do that. Okay. I don't like looking at a picture of myself the whole time, so I'll move that off. Let's just start off with some background. If you can just start off with a brief introduction. I'm pretty sure everybody here knows who DigiKey is, but if you could just explain in your own words, what is DigiKey and where you guys fit in the supply chain for most of our customers who are electronics contract manufacturers.
Yes. So yes, I think most of the people probably already know DigiKey, so I would say dive deeper on all the things. But very quickly, we are a privately owned company. We have been founded in 1972, and we are located in the United States, especially in the north of Minnesota. So we are a distributor of electronic components, and more specifically, we are an iService distributor. So what this means? This means that we have a strong inventory, a large breadth of products. It's about 10 million that are referenced on the web, and a high level of in-stock products. It's more than 2 million. And we most probably have the biggest stock available for anybody in the world. And on top of that, on that inventory, we provide a set of services that could be packaging, that could be low quantity, and we ship all the products on the same day. So, and we deliver almost the next day in North America and 2 days in Europe. And to make our stock and services available to all our customers, we have a strong engagement on digital technologies. So we have, of course, the DigiKey.com, where any customer can find all the offer available in real time. We also invest a lot on the online user experience in general. It's really a continuous improvement for the team. And we also propose a set of digital connectivities. We have the well-known EDI, CXML, and Punch-Out. And I would say more recently, we have the API that is probably the best set of API we have on the market.
Fantastic. Thank you for that introduction. And as kind of a follow-up to that, two things. I'm going to launch the next poll here because you did mention, the APIs, and DigiKey definitely does have a very strong API capability. So again, just polling the audience to make sure that you have a baseline understanding of what an API is. But while that's running, could one of you speak to DigiKey's current API functionality and where that is right now?
Yeah. So our API offering right now, it's self-service. It's available for everyone in a limited manner, of course, but it includes functionality for the entire purchasing process, everything from product discovery and search all the way through ordering and post-order support. We support all the same currencies, languages as we do through our website, in addition to the self-service access to the APIs. We also offer experienced technical support to assist with any questions that may arise, any issues you may come along as you're trying to connect with DigiKey.
Fantastic. And just looking at the poll responses here, I see that it's about a little over a third of people say I've kind of heard of APIs but don't really know what it is. Nathan, from your perspective, how would you explain what an API is to somebody or what they can use it for?
Yeah, it's a tough concept to grasp because there's really nothing that you can look at. It's not something that I can't point you to a website and say, go look at our APIs. It's just a method of communicating and passing data from computer to computer. But it's really powerful. It takes the functionality that's available through our website and available to our backend systems and makes that available to you within your own application. So we're taking DigiKey data and giving it to you in the way you need to use it.
Yeah. An example that I've kind of seen as an analogy is where humans access information digitally by going to companies' websites and things like that. a software can access it through APIs. So you're getting probably the same type of information, but it's more oriented towards a computer reading it rather than a human reading it. Would that be a fair analogy?
Yep.
Yep, I think that's fair.
Cool. So going down that path of what is an API, what would be an example of, or maybe you can just speak to what are some of the ways that people are currently using APIs in an innovative way that you're seeing?
Yeah, customers can use API at different level. I mean, it could be, for example, to optimize the NPI and CRUD processes. It could be to streamline the ordering processes as well. Or it could be also engineers that are using the PCNs that are returned by the API, or to find alternative products. And some others, or I would say updating automatically price availability at the time, because they understand, I would say, that the wrong information may end with shortages or negative impact on the cash flow. But also, I mean, on the way that they are using, I would say, adopting that solution, we have three main, I would say, ways. The first one is, I mean, they can develop internally, but it's not always easy for a customer because they don't always have the, I would say, the developer resources. It's not really IT, it's really developer resources available in a company. So some others are contracting the development to software engineering companies that will anyway provide as well dedicated solution. Or we have, of course, many other customers that are using, I would say, solutions like CalcuQuote, because it's a turnkey solution. It's really easy to adopt, and you also have the benefit of the update and the new features that will come along the way. So that's how they are innovating mostly.
Fantastic. That's cool. If you had to think of kind of a really cool, innovative example, have you seen anything that's especially unique that you say, oh, what a creative way of using an API for improving your processes? Yeah.
If I can highlight one example is we have a couple of companies here in France that has been founded on the idea to provide an online experience for customers for prototyping activities. So the customers are able to directly have, I would say, send the BOM online and get the price immediately, place the order, and do all the things. And finally, to have no humans that are interacting with the prices, with the order, and all that things. And that's pretty unique. It's pretty new. It's 3-4 years now we see that kind of companies here.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, and that's definitely that's definitely where things are going. It's definitely something where we're starting to see more and more of that, even from CalcuQuote's perspective, where people want more and more touchless processes. So going down that track a little bit, let's talk about, well, I'll mention this now, but we'll show this to you guys later as well, is where can people learn about the DigiKey APIs? And that's just digikey.com/API, right? Is
yes.
that the best resource for them to get started? Fantastic. And we've got a slide on that later too. But.
Yes, that's the best way. I mean, we have designed this landing page, and they can find a quick video introduction about digital things. They also have a return on investment calculator. We have an ebook that explains the challenges of the current supply chain processes and the potential solution with APIs. We have an FAQ. We have the list of APIs that Nathan mentioned it before, and the list of the technological partners. And we also have another, I would say, landing page that is, I would say, the developer portal. In fact, I mean, when we go more technical, where we have all the technical documentation, and we also have an online API simulator.
Got it. Yeah, that's and as somebody who has been the beneficiary of a lot of those resources and documentation, it's definitely very well organized, and the support team at DigiKey is also really great about, if there are more advanced questions and things like that. So, but the documentation is very sufficient for being able to get started and make good use of the APIs. So it's in good shape. While we're on the subject, we do have couple questions that have come in. I'll address one here, which is, it just says, Did you say that the API communications is real time? Can you just speak to about how current is the data that is coming through the APIs?
Do you want to answer, Nathan? Do you want me to answer?
I can answer that. Yeah, the APIs that DigiKey provides, our data, the data that's coming back from our APIs is real time. It's up to date. You won't find more than a 1 to 2 second lag with what's available on the website. So it is valuable. It's real time information.
Yeah. And I can speak to on the CalcuQuote side, just as users of the API, as kind of pushing that data to our customers. One of the things that we try to emphasize is we don't want to display stale data to our customers, right? Because especially with how volatile the supply chain is, having real-time information is extremely critical. So knowing that the API is as current of, within seconds, and if that's not fast enough, I don't know what is. It's definitely very useful to have that real-time information, because we hear about it all the time from our EMS customers where they say, oh, I thought this part was available, but I went to go buy it and now it's out of stock, right? And that kind of stuff drives supply chain organizations crazy. So it definitely helps them to know, yes, this is the realest version of the data that I can have access to. Cool. Okay, there is another question in here about API integration and blockchain technology. Up to you guys. Do you want to address that now, or maybe we save that for later as we start talking more about the future? What do you think?
We can try to address now, but honestly, for me, knowing the blockchain technology and knowing the APIs, it's really two different subjects from our point of view, and they can, in fact, be complementary. But it's really two different domains. But that's my point of view.
Yeah, Nathan, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I agree with Stefan. It's two separate things, but I think the technology that the APIs provide is complementary to the blockchain piece.
Yeah, in the way I've seen most of the supply chain, blockchain things focused on is more around traceability and making sure you've got valid components and preventing counterfeiting and keeping multiple parties in sync rather than actually exchanging the information for real-time access. So,
yeah, but that's why they are complementary. API will probably be part of the blockchain as the way to interact with the blockchain.
Yeah, makes sense. Very good. So since blockchain is kind of a buzzword, and so is APIs, let's talk about the future, because that's where I think things are going. From your perspectives, where do you see APIs fitting into the future of electronic supply chain? Just knowing that today, I know a lot of orders are being placed through purchase orders and emails and spreadsheets, but sorry, I jumped in, I guess. Go ahead, Nathan.
No, it's a race to the lead. As competition increases, time to market's a large concern. Having access to accurate and up-to-date information quickly can make a huge difference. We see the digital engagement using APIs as a very important part of our customer success as well as our success in the future. As more processes lend themselves to some level of automation, we'll continue to provide more functionality and develop more functionality through APIs to meet those needs.
Yeah, absolutely, and full agreement there. In terms of how the suite of APIs that DigiKey has, how does that tie into another buzzword that we hear all the time is digital transformation? What does that mean to you guys, and what does the API suite mean for that?
Yeah, I agree. It can be a buzzword. I mean, the digital transformation. To me, digital transformation is moving from the 100% human-driven processes to the paradigm of, I would say, the business-driven by automation. I mean, I would like to do an analogy with the autonomous car. I mean, when we think about it, before we had fully manual cars, and then we started to have the cruise control, and then the adaptive cruise control and the centering car in the lane. then more and more automation until the car is capable of driving itself to ideal conditions. And maybe we don't know until maybe at a moment or another, we'll all have the Michael Knight's car, name it kids for the one that remember, the one that are old like me, I would say, that will just drive us without any interaction. So, and if we, I would say, transpose this idea to a market, I see almost the same. I mean, we have, it's going to be a long journey for the customer. We'll start, some of them are already, or still, I would say, with the 100% human process it. And then we will go first probably to the digital connectivity with the other parties. And then we'll start to have the ad hoc automation with the on-demand actions. And that's, I would say, more the assisted automation. And then more and more and more automation. But from my point of view, the first step that we'll have to go through is the digital. I mean, if we don't have the right data, we will not go to the automation. But I mean, coming back to this word, digital automation, digital transformation, it's for me not one action. It's something that will continue in any case, because we will have new opportunity to be more digital or to change for new technologies and so on. So it's probably something that will continue to listen for a long time, to hear for a long time.
Nathan, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Stefan's right. It's digital transformation isn't something, it's a great buzzword everybody's talking about right now, but it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that as an organization you have to commit to. There's investment and it takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, again, speaking on behalf of at least the EMS companies that we work with, it's definitely where they'll start off with baby steps, right? And they'll say, oh, I wish I could just get this piece of information. It'll let me know the lead time on a part. And then it's like, oh wait, well, if I can get the lead time, then I can also figure out what my cost of BOM is. And if I can know what the cost of BOM is, I can instantly place an order. And if I can instantly place an order, then I can track the shipment. And the possibilities become endless very quickly about where that data sharing with the supply chain can go. So Stefan, earlier you had mentioned there's on the DigiKey website, there's an ROI tool. Do you see, or could you speak to any examples of how EMS companies are using APIs and this process of digital transformation for increasing their competitiveness?
Yes. So I can talk about 3 cases that they all EMS. They are in fact based in France. It's 3 cases. We have one that is a subcontractor that is more dynamic slow volume production. It's about 10 million euros turnover. And the context is they were managing a lot of quotes manually, about 500 quotes. So this means more or less 2 per day. And we know that we have a lot of lines to manage, and some of the lines are very low value, sometimes less than 50 or 30 euro, and we have a lot of it. And the reality is, with especially the new project, there is a low conversion ratio, but the reality is less than 10% usually. And and the idea was not to add extra human resources. So, but then their objective was to win more market share. And for that, they expected to be the first to respond to the customer and to also increase, I would say, the efficiency on quoting activities, and to respond to all prospects, even if they know that 10% will only be converted. So it's a company that adopted a solution, and especially for managing quotes and with an API connection. And after 3 months, they were able to manage 50% of the quotes in 1 day instead of 3 days. And we know that, I would say, especially right now for customers, this makes sense. And it's also less data transaction with suppliers. I mean, before we were receiving all the quotes, and then we only receive now, I would say, the key lines, the one where we can really focus on. And as a benefit, I mean, it's a better relationship, and we can also invest more time with the customer to quote these strategic lines. So yeah, that's the first example. And I have another one that is, I would say, much bigger. It's about 100 million customer. It's more, I would say, mid to high volumes. And in fact, they use a tool that is not on the quoting side, but is on the procurement side, and is doing automation. So typically, this tool is checking all the price opportunities on the market and considering the total cost of ownership. And also the stock of the cost, the risk regarding the production. So it's something that is defined by the financial department. The software is taking decision to update the orders accordingly. And thanks to, I would say, this solution, they have been able to, they are saving every week about $20K. That is not much, but it's interesting. I mean, and most important, they save it in 6 months about 1 million of excess inventory, and that's especially key for them.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Just to finalize with the one I mentioned before, yeah, I mean, again, the company that created 5 years ago a website to provide prototypes directly online with a fully online customer experience, real-time pricing, and also the interconnection with the production. So there is a limited interaction from humans on the back end. And 5 years after, we talk about 1,000 quotes performed online. So it's about 100,000 prices that are provided online. So that's pretty massive. And 100 to 200 projects, so new prototypes per month. And now it's a company that is around 4 or 5 million. And in fact, we have 2 or 3 companies, I would say, doing the same business model here in France. So it's 3 cases. Yep.
Yeah, and in fact, that's kind of to recap what you said. I think you said things that I can definitely imagine from a buyer or a supply chain manager's perspective. That's huge, right? You talked about gaining market share for the company, adding efficiency in the process, focusing your attention on the high value items instead of kind of we call it popcorn parts or penny parts, whatever it is, right? If you're buying in low volumes, it doesn't make sense to talk about those more. You spend more time and money talking about them than actually the value of the parts sometimes. And then the final thing you mentioned is even it's not just the looking up the information in the supply chain, but it's downstream where you start to see the benefits in your excess material holdings and your production getting more efficient, things like that. So
that's a set of different benefits for the company, as you said. I mean, this can reduce the soft cost. I mean, it's less emails. They don't have to check on the web or to compile different data sources. This can optimize the hard cost, even if sometimes purchasers think that they have the right price. But for the annual markets, for example, who knows if 3 months after it's still the right opportunity? I don't know, in terms of packaging or in terms of pricing. And this improves also quality, efficiency, customer experience, and improve the time to market in general. So it's a lot of benefit at the end of the story.
Yeah, and it's the way I see it, it plays out as a win for everybody, right? Because the customer is saving time and money and reducing their excess materials, and hopefully being more responsive and gaining market share. And from DigiKey's perspective, also, you're getting to focus on where you can add the most value to your customers through your supply chain expertise, right? So very good.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. And just for everybody, I do see there's a lot of questions that have come in. We'll get to those. There's quite a few. So if you've asked a question and we haven't gotten to it, don't worry. I see them. We'll just get to it. There's a few questions that I have that I think roll those in as well. So yeah. Okay. So continuing down the conversation of what's the future and what's the return look like, 2 questions on that, or 2-part question. One is, how is this trending in terms of, are you seeing an acceleration in the adoption of APIs? And the second part of that is, if you are seeing that, what's next planned for DigiKey? What do you guys see as kind of the next thing that you want to do for your APIs?
So yes, I would say I do see a positive trend. I would say at least in Europe, that is my territory, but I'm sure it's the same in North America. Now the early majority are using digital connectivities, at least for quoting processes, because that's usually the main pain point for the customers. And we start to see, I would say, early adopters that would say start with that kind of ad hoc automation I explained just before, to comparing the price and so on, and also to optimize supply chain processes. And the few innovators that I would say, we have a couple of companies now that are sending orders, I would say, where the software is changing the order automatically and sending directly. So I mean, it's the ad hoc automation where the purchasers and the supply chain directors trust the software to do the change by itself. So yeah, I see positive trend, but again, it's going to be a long journey. I mean, this will take time. Even if now we can have the feeling that it's a slow change, but we are in industry. We also have the change management on the people side we have to consider. But I do think that we are moving on the digital world more and more.
Yeah, and that's something that I can definitely see from a buyer's perspective. There's a change management to consider there, right? Because we see this on the implementation of CalcuQuote side, where we're training people and we say, you have to learn to instruct or delegate tasks to the software rather than trying to do everything yourself in a manual way, right? Because the traditional approach is, if I have this component, I search it manually from all these different sources, and then I sit there and try to compare. But those types of things, I think once you start to get data sharing between applications, computers are much better than humans at math, right? That's their skill, is doing math problems. And at the end of the day, part of it is at least just a mathematical consideration of, this is a preferred supplier for me, and they have the stock and they can meet my delivery deadline and so on. So it's logic that can be programmed in there. Good. There's a kind of a follow-up to that question that somebody has asked, which is, not all customers will be able to or will wish to do APIs, but it's key for certain sectors. And I don't know if you'll have an exact number on this, but the question is, what percentage of customers in 3 years do you think will use APIs? But maybe I'd like to preface that with another question of my own, which is there scenarios where you would say that your customers are poor qualifiers for API usage, right? Where you'd say, in these scenarios, we don't recommend that you use the DigiKey API, or you have these characteristics?
So probably I would say all customers can find a benefit on the digital connectivities in general. API is just one solution. So yes, and to answer the question about the percentage of customers in 3 years, I mean, it's going to be country by country, probably, because especially the countries where we are labor cost that is very high, they have, I would say, they have to deal with competitiveness with the other countries that are low cost. And digital is part of this. I mean, this can absolutely help them to stay competitive. So, but to answer on the percentage, talking about the country, for example, today, I mean, probably I would say a tier to an half of the customers here in France right now are using digital connection. And they are not all using by themselves. They can use, as I would say, they can use a software like CalcuQuote. That's for sure an accelerator for them. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. And
yeah,
along, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add on. I think there's, there's going to be opportunities for customers to jump to APIs, but there's going to be some customers out there that already have existing connections with, with us and with others that are by EDI or by other digital methods. We don't want to disrupt those connections. Those connections are functioning, they're working, and at the end of the day, they're providing a similar benefit. So we want to make sure that we're not, forcing somebody to make a decision here and chase a buzzword in terms of API when they have a solution that's working.
Yeah, and to be fair, I guess my perspective on this is a little bit skewed just because of my relationship with DigiKey, or CalcuQuote's relationship with DigiKey, and how we use the APIs. But absolutely, the EDI. Do you want to speak to those other options in a little bit more detail, to kind of explain what they are, just for people who might not be aware of what an EDI is or something?
Yeah, sure. I mean, EDI, electronic data interchange, is very similar to an API, but much more structured. Requires a little bit more structure and a little bit more programming up front. We also have opportunities for punch out solutions as well. So if your ERP system is available and enables punch out, we can handle that path as well. At the end of the day, we're looking to provide the solution that works best for the customer.
Sounds good. On the previous thread that we were on, just one other question related to that is, we talked about qualifying criteria for customers. Is there an approval process for customers to utilize the various APIs that DigiKey has to offer? Or how does a customer start to use the APIs?
Yeah, starting out's easy. As we've mentioned a couple of times, from our website, digikey.com/API, it's a self-service portal. You can go in, you can sign up. I highly recommend that that you have somebody at your company that's has some programming skills, that has some software development skills. It's not for the faint of heart, as they say. It does take development. You'll need to create your own application. You'll need some of that expertise within your organization to do it. But it is self-service to get started. All of our APIs are listed out, or they've been made public, with the exception of ordering, and that requires a DigiKey approval, simply because we don't want people accidentally trying to connect and place orders if it hasn't been vetted through us yet. So,
yeah. I know when we were building early stage shop queue, we had the ordering API, and that was something that I was talking to our team internally. I said during testing, don't accidentally buy a bunch of parts, right? Because you don't want to risk doing that. So absolutely, that makes sense. I'm going to go back to just sharing my screen here for the next part here. We've mentioned it a couple times. Just wanted to make sure everybody has access to this on digikey.com/API, and you can navigate to that just by going to the DigiKey website, click on resources and API solutions. Feel free to check that out. Like I said, there's a lot of resources there, and you'll find the ROI calculator that Stefan mentioned earlier, as well as a few other things. So that's definitely a great resource. Is there any other things that you think somebody should look into as part of their consideration of using your digital solutions, or just getting started? Any resources you'd point them to?
Yeah, I mean, the customers can start, I would say, by themselves with the API, or they can, of course, join one of the partners. That's really another opportunity that can be considered. But yes, I mean, in addition to the API landing page, you can, I would say, almost join anybody in DigiKey. I mean, most of the people are aware how to handle an API request. I would say, not technically, but to know where to go, how we can help with that. So you can definitely join us. Could be me or the representative, or of course the partners like CalcuQuote as well. Most important, I guess.
Fantastic. Good. So that kind of covers the questions that I had. I want to make sure that we leave at least a few minutes for those who are attending. So if there are questions from the audience, and I'm going to kind of review, because I did see some chat messages, but if you do see, if you do want to ask anything, I think that we'll save the rest of the time for Q&A. Let's see here. Okay, so there's a question here, and I'm going to try to paraphrase this a little bit, which is, the question is, how do you view the competition for this service offering, which I'm assuming refers to digital, the digital offerings that DigiKey has, and do you see others moving into this space? So, volume distributors, or is it high service channels only?
So I would say yes. For the high service channels, we already see some APIs. We like to think that we have the best set of API, of course, but the competition is also starting with the APIs, or they're already in place. Regarding the volume distributors, we are, I would say, probably still at the beginning of the journey with them. We have some that are starting with this, but it's really, from our point of view, still the beginning. But just to comment a bit more, I would say it's anyway important to see the competition starting, because we would like, I would say, all the customers only coming to DigiKey, but we know that at a certain point we are complementary with the others. So we know that we will probably all end with that technology at the moment or another. It's going to be beneficial for the customers at the end of the story.
Yeah, I think we might have lost Nathan. You still with us?
I'm still here on audio. Had some internet issues.
Gotcha. Joys of working from home.
We are all working from home.
Yes,
probably.
Yeah, no, that's a very helpful answer. And actually, I didn't ask this earlier, but it's kind of a funny situation, or a conversation that I had with a prospective customer a couple weeks ago, which was, what motivation is there for DigiKey from DigiKey's perspective? You've got DigiKey.com, you've got my DigiKey portal. Why APIs? Like, why do you think that's the future for you?
Because that's one connection that customer needs. That's, I would say, that's simple as this. Of course, being the first is a benefit for us. I would say to have more. I would say to have more than the others is competition. It's a market with the competition, so of course it's a benefit for us. But it's especially because customers are asking for it, and it's a benefit for customers.
Makes sense.
And finally, even if the customer, I would say, is very different if the customer is getting the price on DigiKey.com or getting the price on the API. At the end of the story, the customer receives the price and he will take the decision. So it's just another way to get the information.
Gotcha. It's kind of like just being there at whatever point of decision the customer has and however they want to interface with you, right? So makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good deal. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you guys would like to cover before we wrap up?
For me, it's okay.
Okay. Well, thank you both so much for joining, and we've got a very good sized audience here. So thank you guys all for participating and asking your questions. Just a quick recap, if you do have any follow-up questions, you can always check out, if it's about DigiKey, check out DigiKey's website. If it's about CalcuQuote, just go to CalcuQuote.com. We'd love to hear from you as well. With that, this concludes the first one. In June, you're going to see a second in this series where we're talking to some of our supply chain partners. So look out for that here shortly as well. And we will be talking to you all again soon, I'm sure. Thank you very much for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.